Before we begin, please remember that I am not a financial advisor, a real estate agent, or a certified contractor. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. The information shared here is based on experience and research, but it is not a substitute for professional financial, legal, or real estate advice. Always conduct your own thorough due diligence and consult with qualified professionals before making any investment decisions. House flipping involves significant risk, including the potential loss of your entire investment. They thought they had found the one. It was a 1920s bungalow with a wraparound porch, original hardwood floors hiding under stained carpet, and what the real estate agent called tons of character. For Mark and Sarah, two people raised on a steady diet of home renovation shows, it was perfect. This was it. This was their ticket out of the 9-to-5 grind. They saw the aftershot in their minds, a gleaming white kitchen, a spa-like bathroom, and a massive profit check in their hands. They paid cash using a huge chunk of their life savings and dove in headfirst, fueled by pure excitement and a little bit of arrogance. The first week was a blur of demolition. They tore out carpets, smashed through plaster walls, and filled a dumpster with the ghosts of the past. It was exhilarating, but then the dream started to crack. A plumber they hired to move a drain pipe took one look under the house and just shook his head. "You've got galvanized steel pipes," he said, "and they're shot. The whole house needs a repipe." That was an unbudgeted $10,000. Then, while tearing out the old kitchen cabinets, they discovered a wall full of active termites and the rotted studs to prove it. That was another 5,000 plus weeks of delay for fumigation and repairs. The 3-month project stretched into 6, then 9. Every single day the house wasn't finished, it was costing them money. Property taxes, insurance, electricity for the power tools, water. It was a slow, agonizing bleed. The excitement was gone, replaced by a constant, gnawing anxiety. The profit margin they'd calculated on a napkin shrank, then vanished, then went deep into the negative. After 11 months of stress, arguments, and draining the last of their savings, they finally sold the house. Their grand profit? They lost $17,000. 17 grand and a year of their life they could never get back, all because they made the exact same mistakes that 90% of first-time flippers make. That story isn't just a story. It's a warning. It happens every single day in cities all across America. The dream of flipping houses, the vision of financial freedom you see on TV, can quickly become a financial prison if you don't know the unforgiving rules of this game. But here's the critical truth. It does not have to be your story. The difference between a 6-figure payday and a soul-crushing loss isn't luck. It's knowledge. It's about knowing where the landmines are buried before you ever take your first step. And in this video, I am going to give you the map. We're going to break down the 5 biggest, most catastrophic mistakes that first-time flippers make, so you can sidestep them completely and turn your first project into a massive, life-changing success. So, if you're ready to learn how to flip houses the right way, let's get into it. The single biggest mistake, the one that sinks more first-time flippers than all the others combined, is this: falling in love with the house and completely ignoring the math. You get seduced by the dream and forget that you are not buying a home. You are buying a product, an investment, a business asset. This isn't about finding your forever home. This is about one thing and one thing only: profit. Mark and Sarah made this exact mistake. They fell for the charm and the good bones of that old bungalow. They let their emotions write a check that their budget couldn't cash. Let me be brutally clear. Good bones and character are worthless if the numbers don't work. You are running a business and your spreadsheet is your CEO. Your gut feeling about a cute breakfast nook is your enemy. To protect yourself from this emotional trap, you need to tattoo one simple formula onto your brain. It's called the 70% rule, and it is the golden rule of house flipping. It's not a suggestion, it's your financial lifeline. The rule states that you should pay no more than 70% of the after-repair value, or ARV, of a property, minus the cost of the repairs. Let's break that down with a real-world example. Let's say you find a house and you do your research. You look at comparable recently sold homes, the comps, in that exact neighborhood. You see that fully renovated houses of a similar size and style are selling for $400,000. That is your ARV. Next, you walk through the property with a trusted contractor, and we'll talk more about that later. And you determine that it will cost you $60,000 to get it into that top of the market, fully renovated condition. Now we apply the 70% rule. You take the ARV, which is $400,000, and multiply it by 70% or 0.7, That gives you $280,000. Now, from that $280,000, you subtract your estimated repair costs of $60,000. What are you left with? $220,000. That number, $220,000, is your maximum allowable offer, or MAO. That is the absolute highest price you can offer for that property. Not a penny more. But wait, what about that other 30%? Where does that go? That 30% is your everything cushion. It's your buffer for survival. It has to cover your potential profit, yes, but it also has to cover all the things first-timers forget. It covers your closing costs when you buy the property. It covers your closing costs and real estate commissions when you sell it. And most importantly, it covers your holding costs. Holding costs are the silent killers of a house flip. They are the expenses that stack up every single day that you own the property. This includes your loan payments and interest, property taxes, homeowner's insurance, basic utilities like electricity and water, and maybe even HOA fees. For Mark and Sarah, their holding costs were around $2,000 a month. When their 3-month project turned into an 11-month nightmare, those holding costs alone ate up an extra $16,000 they never, ever planned for. That 30% buffer is designed to absorb those costs and still leave you with a healthy profit. If you pay more than your MAO, you are personally funding your own financial disaster. You are shrinking your profit margin, eliminating your safety net, and gambling with your savings. You have to be ruthless. If the seller won't accept your maximum allowable offer, you walk away. Period. There will always be another deal. But there won't always be another life savings to burn through. This is a numbers game, not an emotional one. A cheap house is not always a good deal. A $70,000 house that needs $120,000 in repairs is a far worse investment than a $180,000 house that only needs $30,000. It's not about the purchase price, it's about the formula. So you've mastered the math. You've let the spreadsheet be your guide, you've checked your emotions at the door, and you've bought a property based on cold, hard logic. You've successfully avoided the first catastrophic mistake. But now you're standing on the front lawn of your new investment property, sledgehammer in one hand and a dream in the other. And that is the precise moment where the second, and arguably more costly, mistake is waiting to ambush you. That mistake isn't about choosing the wrong paint color or picking granite instead of quartz. It's far more fundamental, and it's a trap baited with pure, unadulterated excitement. It's the mistake of treating demolition day like a celebration instead of a calculated surgical procedure. I call it the demo day delusion, and it's the #1 killer of profits and timelines for first-time flippers. You see, the second monumental mistake you must avoid is diving in without a battle plan. Let me tell you about a guy named Kevin. Kevin was a classic first-timer. He'd watched hundreds of hours of flipping shows. He'd binge-watched every season of every home renovation program you can name. In his mind, he was an expert. He bought a dated but solid 1970s ranch house, and on the day he closed, he invited 3 of his buddies over. They brought crowbars, sledgehammers, and a case of beer. Their goal? To open the place up. It was a party. They tore out the kitchen cabinets with wild abandon, laughing as the particle board exploded. They sledgehammered the non-load-bearing wall between the tiny kitchen and the living room, high-fiving as drywall dust filled the air. By the end of the day, they had a massive pile of debris, a huge sense of accomplishment, and absolutely no idea what they were going to do next. The next Monday, Kevin had his first contractor walk through. The guy took one look at the chaos and his jaw tightened. He walked over to the newly opened-up space and pointed to a bundle of wires hanging from the ceiling that Kevin and his buddies had just worked around. "You know this is old knobbin tube, right?" he asked. "You can't just tie into this. The whole house needs a rewire. That's about 15 grand you didn't plan for." Then he went into the bathroom, where the toilet had been ripped out. He shone a flashlight down the pipe. "Your main stack is cast iron," he said, "and I can see a major crack from here. When you start running new water lines, the pressure change is going to shatter this thing. You're looking at jackhammering the slab and replacing the whole sewer line to the street. That's another 20 grand. In a single weekend of unchecked enthusiasm, Kevin had not only failed to add value, he had violently uncovered $35,000 in catastrophic problems he had no budget for. His project was mortally wounded before he'd even gotten a single permit. This is the demo day delusion. It's the belief that progress is measured by the size of the dumpster in the driveway. The truth is, a sledgehammer is the dumbest tool in your arsenal. The most powerful tool is a spreadsheet. It's a detailed scope of work. It's a line item budget so granular it makes your eyes water. Before you touch anything, before you even think about picking up a hammer, you have to stop and create your roadmap. This isn't the fun part. It isn't sexy. It won't get you a million views on Instagram. But it is the single most important phase of your entire flip. Skipping this step is like a pilot taking off without a flight plan in a storm at night. You might get lucky, but you're probably going to crash. So what does a real battle plan look like? It's 3 distinct, non-negotiable documents: the scope of work, the budget, and the schedule. First, the scope of work, or SOW. This is not a to-do list scribbled on a napkin. This is a novel about your house. You go room by room, surface by surface, and detail every single thing that needs to be done. It's not update kitchen. It's remove 14 existing oak cabinets. Reroute plumbing for sink from wall to new island location. Install 220-volt line for new electric range. Install 150 square feet of Morning Mist luxury vinyl plank flooring. Install 15 linear feet of Calacatta gold quartz countertops with a 4-inch backsplash. You specify materials, finishes, and even model numbers if you have them. Why this level of detail? Because ambiguity is where contractors make their money. If you just say install new floor, a bad contractor can put in the cheapest, crappiest laminate imaginable, and technically, they fulfilled the contract. Your SOW is your shield. It protects you from misunderstandings, corner cutting, and vague promises. Second, the budget. And I don't mean one budget. You need 3. Think of it as your financial defense system. Level 1 is your working budget. This is the direct translation of your scope of work into dollars and cents. You take every line item from your SOW and get real quotes. Not guesstimates. Not ballpark figures. You get multiple written itemized bids from qualified tradespeople for every single job. This process alone will be a sobering wake-up call. You'll discover that the bathroom you thought would cost $5,000 is actually going to cost $12,000. This is the point where you adjust your scope to meet your budget, not the other way around. You might have to switch from quartz to a high-end laminate, or from custom tile to a prefabricated shower surround. This is where the flip becomes a business, not a passion project. Level 2 is your contingency fund. This is the most crucial and most ignored part of a first-timer's budget. You must, I repeat, must add a 15% to 20% contingency on top of your entire working budget. This is not if things go wrong money. This is when things go wrong money, because things will go wrong. You will open a wall and find termite damage. A plumber will discover an illegal S-trap that has to be fixed to pass inspection. Your special order windows will arrive cracked. The contingency fund is for the known unknowns. It's the cost of dealing with reality. If your rehab budget is $50,000, you need an extra $7,500 to $10,000 sitting in a separate account untouched. If you don't have it, you can't afford the flip. Period. Level 3 is your catastrophe fund. This is different from your contingency. This is your oh my god, the foundation is cracked fund. It's for the unknown unknowns. The project-killing black swan events. This might be another 5% on top of everything else. It's the money that lets you sleep at night. Best case scenario, you never touch it. But if you need it, it will be the difference between a manageable crisis and total bankruptcy. Finally, you need the schedule. A realistic timeline is your best defense against mounting holding costs. The mortgage, taxes, insurance, and utilities that bleed you dry every single day the project isn't finished. Work backward from your desired listing date. Talk to your contractors about their lead times. How long does it take to get a permit in your city? 2 weeks? 2 months? How long is the lead time for kitchen cabinets? 6 weeks? 12? You need to orchestrate this like a symphony conductor. You can't have the drywaller show up before the electrician has finished roughing in the wiring. You can't have the floor guys scheduled before the painters are done. A detailed schedule with built-in buffer days for delays is the only way to keep the project moving forward. Creating this 3-part battle plan: scope, budget, and schedule will take you weeks. It will be tedious. It will be frustrating. You will be tempted to just grab that sledgehammer and feel the rush of demolition. But I promise you, every hour you spend planning in the quiet of your office will save you 10 hours of chaos on the job site and $10,000 out of your pocket. It turns you from an amateur with a hammer into a professional project manager. And once you have that bulletproof plan in your hands, you're ready to take the next step. You're ready to start assembling your team. But this leads directly to the third great mistake, a trap that's less about spreadsheets and more about psychology. It's about the person you're about to hand the keys of your investment to. The contractor. Because having the world's greatest plan is completely useless if you give it to the wrong person to execute. And picking the wrong contractor won't just delay your project. It can lead to liens on your property, lawsuits, and a level of stress you couldn't possibly imagine. This is a trap that so many first-time flippers fall into, and it's not because they're foolish. It's because they're optimistic. They're excited. And a bad contractor is a master at weaponizing that excitement against you. Let me tell you about a couple, we'll call them Mike and Jessica. They found what they believed was the perfect first flip. A little 3-bedroom ranch in a decent up-and-coming neighborhood. It needed a full gut, but the numbers worked. At least on paper. They got 3 quotes. 2 were around $80,000. The third, from a guy we'll call Frank, was $60,000. Frank was charming. He showed up in a clean truck, talked a big game, showed them pictures on his iPad of other jobs he'd done. He told them, "Look, the other guys are trying to rip you off. I'm a small operator, low overhead. I pass the savings on to you." Mike and Jessica felt like they'd found a hidden gem. A contractor who was honest and affordable. They skipped calling his references because he just seemed so trustworthy. They signed his simple 1-page agreement and handed him a check for $20,000 for materials. The first 2 weeks were amazing. A demolition crew came in and tore the house down to the studs. The dumpster was filled, the framing started going up. Mike and Jessica would visit the site every day after work, giddy with progress. Frank was responsive, answering their texts, promising them the world. They gave him the second draw payment of $20,000 when the rough plumbing and electrical were supposedly done. And then, Frank started getting harder to reach. A text would go unanswered for a day. Then 2. The framing crew that was supposed to be there on Monday didn't show up. Frank said their truck broke down. Then on Wednesday, he said the lumber yard delivered the wrong materials. By Friday, there was just silence. The site was dead. Weeks turned into a month. Mike and Jessica were in a full-blown panic. They're holding costs. The mortgage, the insurance, the taxes, were bleeding them dry every single day. Nothing was happening. Finally, they drove to the address on Frank's business card. It was a P.O. box. They started digging, and the truth they uncovered was a financial horror film. Frank hadn't paid the demolition crew. He hadn't paid the framers. And he definitely hadn't paid the lumber yard. The $20,000 for materials? It was gone. And their second payment? Also gone. Then the certified letters started arriving. The first was from the lumber company, placing a mechanic's lien on their property for $8,000. Then another from the framing subcontractor for $12,000. A lien means that even though Mike and Jessica didn't hire these people directly, their property was now the collateral for Frank's debts. They couldn't sell the house, they couldn't refinance it, they couldn't do anything until these strangers were paid. They had a half-finished, exposed to the elements shell of a house. They were out $40,000 in cash. They now owed another $20,000 to people they'd never even met. And they still needed to find a new contractor to finish the job, a job that was now going to cost them far more than the original $80,000 quotes they'd foolishly dismissed. Their dream of financial freedom became a nightmare that nearly ended their marriage and pushed them to the brink of bankruptcy. This story isn't an exaggeration. It happens every single day. The desire to save $10,000 or $20,000 on a quote can end up costing you $100,000 in reality. So how do you avoid this? How do you separate the Franks of the world from the true professionals? You have to become a professional investigator. Your single most important job as a flipper, more important than picking paint colors or kitchen cabinets, is vetting your general contractor. Here is the bulletproof system. Do not skip a single step. First, the rule of 3 is non-negotiable. Get at least 3 bids. But more importantly, you need to demand that every bid is an itemized line-by-line breakdown of the entire project. One bid that just says kitchen remodel $25,000 is useless. A proper bid will say kitchen cabinets, $7,000, countertops quartz, $5,000, electrical work, $2,500, plumbing $2,000, and so on. This is the only way you can compare apples to apples. You might find that Frank's $60,000 bid only allocated $1,000 for flooring, while the $80,000 bids allocated a more realistic $7,000. The cheap quote is often built on lies, omissions, and low-quality allowances that will come back to bite you with change orders later. Second, before you even talk about price, you ask for 2 documents: their state contractor's license and their certificates of insurance. You are looking for 2 specific types of insurance: general liability, and workers' compensation. Do not just look at the paper they hand you. Go to your state's licensing board website. You can Google it, California Contractor State License Board, for example. Type in their license number and verify that it's active and in good standing. Call the insurance company listed on the certificate and verify that the policy is active. A shocking number of shady contractors will use fake or expired documents, banking on the fact that you won't check. This 5-minute task can save you from total ruin. If a contractor has a problem with you verifying their credentials, that is not a red flag. That is a giant, screaming fire engine red siren telling you to run in the other direction. Third, you check references. But you don't just ask, "Were you happy with the work?" You ask forensic questions. Start with this. Can you send me the addresses of your last 3 completed projects and the contact info for those homeowners? A great contractor will be proud to. A bad one will make excuses. When you call those references, you ask, did the project finish on time? Did it finish on budget? When problems came up, because they always do, how did the contractor communicate and resolve them? And the killer question, would you hire them again without any hesitation? If there's a long pause after you ask that last one, you have your answer. And if you can, go see the work in person. Pictures can lie. A crooked tile job or sloppy paint lines don't show up on an iPad. Fourth, the contract. A one-page agreement is a one-way ticket to disaster. Your contract should be a detailed, multi-page document that is reviewed by a real estate attorney. It must include a hyper-detailed scope of work that references the itemized bid. It must include a payment schedule, also known as a draw schedule. This is critical. You never ever pay a contractor based on the passage of time. You pay them based on the completion of specific, verifiable milestones. For example, 15% upon completion of demolition and rough framing, pending city inspection. This protects you from a contractor who drags the job out. The contract must also include a start date and a completion date, with financial penalties for every day the project runs late, known as a per diem penalty. And finally, the single most powerful tool you have to protect yourself: lien waivers. For every single payment you make to your general contractor, you must demand a signed lien waiver from them and from all the major subcontractors and suppliers they've used up to that point. A lien waiver is basically a receipt that says they've been paid, and they waive their right to put a lien on your property. So when you give your contractor that second draw for framing and plumbing, you demand a signed waiver from the framer and the plumber before you release the funds. This single piece of paper is what separates savvy investors from victims like Mike and Jessica. This process sounds like a lot of work. Sounds almost cynical. But it's not. It's business. Flipping a house isn't a hobby. It's a high-stakes venture where you are the CEO, the bank, and the project manager. Hiring your contractor is the most important executive decision you will ever make. Getting it wrong is a catastrophic, project-killing mistake. But let's assume you do everything right. You've got your perfect budget, you've hired a rockstar contractor who's licensed, insured, and has a contract as solid as Fort Knox. You're ready to build the most beautiful house on the block. And that, right there, is the next catastrophic mistake that can sink your entire project before you even list it for sale. You fall in love with the potential. You see the marble countertops, the waterfall island, the spa-like master bathroom with the floor-to-ceiling Italian tile. You envision an open-concept living space that would make an architect weep. You're not just flipping a house. You're creating a masterpiece, a monument to good taste. You are going to build the nicest, most luxurious, most jaw-droppingly beautiful home that this neighborhood has ever seen. And you will lose a catastrophic amount of money doing it. This is mistake number 2. Ignoring the neighborhood ceiling. It's the single most seductive and emotionally driven trap in all of house flipping. Feels so right, but it is so wrong. You see, you're not in the business of building your dream home. You're in the business of building your buyer's dream home at a price the bank will actually approve. And those two things are often worlds apart. Let me tell you about a guy we'll call Kevin. Kevin was a first-time flipper, full of passion and HGTV-fueled ambition. He bought a tired 1,400 square foot ranch in a solid middle-class suburb. The homes there were built in the 70s, decent bones but dated. The neighborhood was a sea of beige vinyl siding and chain-link fences. The most expensive house that had ever sold in that square mile, a completely renovated property, went for $425,000. That was the absolute peak. The top of the mountain. Kevin saw his little ranch and thought, I can do better. He didn't just want to hit the peak, he wanted to build a new one. He tore the house down to the studs, He vaulted the ceilings. He put in a gourmet kitchen with a 6-burner Wolf range and a Sub-Zero refrigerator, a $30,000 appliance package. He installed hand-scraped hickory hardwood floors throughout the entire house. The master bathroom had a steam shower and a freestanding tub that cost more than my first car. When he was done, the house was, without question, the most beautiful home for a 10-mile radius. It was a palace, and he listed it for $650,000. He'd put about $200,000 into the renovation, on top of his purchase price. He needed that number to make a profit. And a funny thing happened. Nothing. Crickets. He had tons of showings. People walked in and their jaws hit the floor. They loved it. They gushed about the finishes. They took pictures of the kitchen. But not a single person made an offer. Why? Because nobody wants to buy the $600,000 palace when their next-door neighbor's house is worth $350,000. It's a psychological and financial dead end. Here's the cold, hard truth you have to burn into your brain. The market doesn't care about your feelings or your impeccable taste. The market only cares about comps. Comps, short for comparable sales, are the bedrock of all real estate valuation. When a buyer wants to get a mortgage, their bank hires an appraiser. That appraiser's job is to justify the sales price. They don't do that by admiring your backsplash. They do it by finding 3 to 5 recently sold properties that are similar in size, age, and location. They look at what those houses sold for, make some adjustments for features, and that's how they determine the value of your property. If the most expensive comp in the neighborhood is $425,000, an appraiser will never ever in a million years appraise your house for $650,000. It doesn't matter if you carved the crown molding from a single piece of oak with your bare hands. The house is only worth what the surrounding market will support. You can put a 10-carat diamond on a plastic ring from a gumball machine, but that doesn't make the whole thing a priceless heirloom. The setting dictates the value. Your neighborhood is the setting. So when a potential buyer who loved Kevin's house went to their bank for a loan, the bank said, "Sure, we'll lend you money. We'll lend you $430,000, because that's what the appraisal says the house is worth." The buyer would have had to come up with a $220,000 down payment, in cash, just to cover the gap between the appraisal and Kevin's asking price. Nobody is going to do that. They'll just go to the next town over and buy a house that's already in a $650,000 neighborhood. Kevin's masterpiece became his prison. He was stuck. He couldn't sell. He was bleeding money every single month on insurance, taxes, and loan payments, the dreaded carrying costs. After 6 agonizing months, he finally slashed the price and sold it for $440,000. A tiny premium for the neighborhood. He lost over $150,000 in a year of his life. He built the best house on the block and it bankrupted him. So how do you avoid this? Simple, but it requires discipline. Before you even make an offer on a property, you must determine its realistic after repair value or ARV. You need to become an expert in that specific micro-market. Get a real estate agent to pull all the comparable sales from the last 6 months in a half-mile radius. Don't look at what houses are listed for. That's just a wish list. Look at what they actually sold for. Find the highest sale price for a renovated home that's similar to yours. That number is your gospel. That is your ceiling. Write it on a sticky note and put it on your computer. That number now dictates your entire project. It dictates your purchase price, it dictates your renovation budget, and most importantly, it dictates your finishes. Your job is not to over-improve. Your job is to appropriately improve. You want to renovate your house to be slightly nicer than the best comp, not to be in a different solar system. If all the other flips in the neighborhood have granite countertops and stainless steel appliances from Home Depot, you don't install imported quartzite and a Viking range. Maybe you use a higher grade granite. Maybe you pick a more stylish backsplash tile. You add thoughtful but not extravagant touches. You want a buyer to walk in and say, "Wow, this is the nicest house we've seen in this neighborhood." You don't want them to say, "Wow, what is this house doing in this neighborhood?" This is the art of flipping. It's a delicate dance between making a property desirable and not pricing yourself out of existence. You need to check your ego at the door. Let go of the desire to build your personal dream home. Your goal is to create a clean, modern, and appealing product that fits seamlessly into the local market and commands the highest possible price within that market's constraints. Think of it like being a chef. If you're opening a burger joint in a blue-collar town, you don't put a $100 foie gras and truffle burger on the menu. You make the absolute best $10 cheeseburger anyone has ever tasted. You use quality beef, a fresh bun, and the perfect sauce. You execute the fundamentals flawlessly and elevate them just enough to stand out. That is how you win. Falling in love with your own vision and ignoring the data is a recipe for disaster. It's how you end up with the prettiest house in the foreclosure auction. You must let the numbers, not your emotions, guide your renovation. But this financial discipline is a two-sided coin. Because just as dangerous as spending too much money is the panic-driven impulse to spend too little. It's the temptation to cut corners to save a few bucks here and there, thinking the buyer will never notice. And that leads us directly to the third mistake, where trying to save $1,000 can end up costing you $50,000 in the entire sale. This is mistake number 3, ignoring the paperwork and the pros. It's the siren song of the first-time flipper. It's the whisper in your ear that says, "You can do this faster. You can do this cheaper. The rules are for other people." It's the decision to skip the permits, to hire the unlicensed handyman, to treat the building code like a friendly suggestion instead of the law. And it is, without a doubt, one of the fastest ways to turn a potential profit into a catastrophic loss. Let's be honest, the temptation is powerful. You're standing in your newly purchased property, the numbers are running through your head, and the timeline is already feeling tight. You want to take down that wall between the cramped kitchen and the dark living room to create that beautiful light-filled open concept that buyers drool over. You call a licensed, insured general contractor. He comes in, takes some measurements, and gives you a quote. The number makes you wince. But what really gets you is the timeline. He tells you it'll take 2 to 4 weeks just for the structural plans and the city permit to be approved, before a single hammer is even swung. 4 weeks of holding costs, of mortgage payments, of insurance, all just waiting for a stamp of approval from a city bureaucrat. Then your buddy tells you about his guy, let's call him Dave. Dave's a fantastic handyman. He can do anything. He comes over, looks at the wall and says, "Yeah, no problem. I can have this wall down and a new support beam in by the end of the week. Cash. Half the price of the other guy. Permits? You don't need a permit for this, it's just one wall. We do this all the time." The music to a flipper's ears. Half the price? A 3-week head start? Feels like you just cracked the code. You've outsmarted the system. So you shake Dave's hand, you pay him in cash, and just like he promised, by Friday the wall is gone. The space looks incredible. It's a transformation. You've saved thousands of dollars in weeks of time. You feel like a genius. You continue with the renovation. New drywall goes up, you tape, you mud, you paint. Gorgeous new laminate flooring flows seamlessly through the new open space. You install a stunning new kitchen with a massive island right where that wall used to be. The house looks like it's straight out of a magazine. You list it, and within 48 hours you have a full price offer. You're ecstatic. You're already calculating your net profit, mentally shopping for your next project. The deal flies through financing, the appraisal comes in great, and everything is perfect. Until the buyer's home inspection. The inspector is a pro. He's seen it all. He walks into your beautifully renovated home, and his eyes immediately go to the big open concept living space. He knows this 1970s house wasn't originally built this way. He pulls out his phone, goes to the city's public records website, and searches for permits issued for your address. He finds one for a water heater replacement from 6 years ago, and that's it. There's no permit for major structural work. He walks over to the center of the room, he looks up at the ceiling, and he makes a note on his clipboard. The inspection report comes back to the buyer with a giant red flag, highlighted in bold. Significant, unpermitted structural alterations observed. Recommend further evaluation by a structural engineer and verification of all work with the local building authority. The buyer's agent calls your agent. The buyer's lender gets a copy of the report and immediately puts a hold on the loan, stating they will not finance a property with known, unpermitted structural work. The deal, your perfect full-price deal, is dead on arrival. Now the panic sets in. You can't sell the house. You're forced to call the city building department yourself to try and fix it. They send their own inspector out, and he is not happy. He tells you that to even consider a retroactive permit, all the work has to be exposed. That means your brand new drywall on the ceiling has to be torn down. Your gorgeous new flooring might have to be pulled up to inspect the foundation footings that support the new posts. You have to hire a structural engineer to come in, inspect the work that Dave did, and draw up plans to submit to the city, a process that costs thousands of dollars and takes weeks. And that's when you get the worst news of all. The engineer takes one look at the beam Dave installed and tells you it's dangerously undersized for the span it's covering. It's not up to code. It's a safety hazard. The city inspector confirms it. Not only do you have to tear everything open, but you have to tear out the inadequate beam and install a much larger, much more expensive one. The work Dave did for $5,000 in cash is now going to cost you $30,000 to fix. You have to hire a new licensed contractor at full price this time to do the demolition, install the correct beam, repair the framing, and then you have to pay to have everything put back together. New drywall, new paint, new trim, and repairing that seamless floor that is now a patchwork of old and new. Add to that the fines from the city for doing the work without a permit in the first place. Your 3-week head start has turned into a 3-month delay. Your $5,000 savings has morphed into a $30,000 catastrophe. And all those months you're still bleeding money on the mortgage, the insurance, the utilities, the taxes, all your holding costs. That home run flip has now become a desperate attempt to just break even. This isn't just about moving a wall. It's about any major system in the house. You hire an unlicensed electrician to save a few $100 on a panel upgrade, and the inspector finds junction boxes buried in the wall, the wrong gauge wire used for a circuit, a massive fire hazard, and the buyer walks. You hire a cheap plumber to move a shower drain. He botches the slope, and a slow leak behind your brand new tile wall creates a $5,000 mold problem that you're now legally obligated to disclose to every future buyer, destroying your property value. Permits and licensed professionals are not a scam. They're not there to slow you down. They are a non-negotiable insurance policy. They are third-party verification that the work done on your property meets the bare minimum safety standards required to ensure the house doesn't burn down, fall down, or flood. The licensed contractor's insurance protects you if one of his workers gets hurt on your property. The city's inspection process protects you from the liability of selling an unsafe home to another family. It creates a public record that proves the work was done correctly, which is exactly what a buyer, their inspector, and their lender want to see. So what's the rule? It's simple. If you are touching anything structural, electrical, or plumbing, meaning moving it, adding it, or significantly altering it, you need to assume you need a permit. Don't ask your handyman. Don't ask your buddy. Call your local building department. It's a free phone call. Tell them what you want to do, and they will tell you exactly what is required. And when you hire your contractors, the very first question you should ask is for their license number and a copy of their insurance certificate. Don't just take their word for it. Go online to your state's licensing board website and verify that their license is active and in good standing. Takes 5 minutes. Any legitimate professional will be happy to provide this. Anyone who hesitates, makes excuses, or tells you that you don't need a permit for major work should be shown the door immediately. Trying to outsmart the system is a fool's game. The system is designed to catch you not during the work but when it matters most, when you try to sell. That's when all the shortcuts and cash deals come back to haunt you. Doing it the right way, the slow way with permits and pros, is the only guaranteed path to a clean, profitable, and successful sale. But even if you do everything by the book, you get the permits, you hire the pros, there's another financial trap that sinks even the most well-intentioned flippers. It's a silent profit killer that has nothing to do with contractors or city inspectors, and it starts the very day you close on the property. It's called your holding costs, and it's the relentless, unforgiving meter that starts running the second the keys are in your hand. Holding costs are every single dollar you spend on that property that isn't a hammer, a nail, or a can of paint. It's the mortgage payment. It's the property taxes. It's the insurance. It's the electricity, the water, the gas, the HOA fees. It is the slow, silent, methodical erosion of your profit margin, one day at a time. And the only thing that makes it stop is selling the house. This brings us to the third catastrophic mistake first-time flippers make: grossly underestimating the project timeline and the soul-crushing cost of time itself. See, a renovation budget is tangible. You can see the line item for new cabinets, for flooring, for a new roof. It's a number you can wrap your head around. But time is abstract. It's slippery. And for a first-time flipper, it's a concept they don't truly respect until it's already eaten half their profits. Let me tell you about a guy we'll call Mark. Mark was smart. He did his homework. He found a great deal on a rundown 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood. He calculated his ARV, his after-repair value. He got quotes from contractors and built what he thought was a solid renovation budget of $50,000. He even added a 10% contingency. He secured a hard money loan, closed on the house, and was ready to make a killing. His plan: a quick 3-month flip. 90 days. In and out. He projected a $60,000 profit. On paper it was a masterpiece. But Mark made a fatal assumption. He assumed that time was free. Day 1, the meter starts. His hard money loan at a 10% interest rate costs him $2,000 a month. Property taxes prorated are another $300 a month. Insurance, which is higher for a vacant construction site, is $150. Utilities, even with minimal use, are another $100. Right there, without lifting a single sledgehammer, Mark's house is costing him over $2,500 every single month just to exist. His 90-day project had a built-in, non-negotiable holding cost of $7,500. He'd factored that in. No problem. But then reality hit. The demolition crew was supposed to start on day 2. They got held up on another job and didn't show up for a week. A 7-day delay. No big deal, right? Just a week. But the meter kept running. That's $580 of profit gone. Poof. Then came the plumbing. The plumber opened up a wall and found old, corroded galvanized pipes that had to be completely replaced. It wasn't in the original scope. That added 2 weeks to the schedule just to get the new materials and do the work. Another 14 days. Another $1,160 of profit vanished into thin air. Mark, trying to save some money after the plumbing surprise, decided he would paint the interior himself. He'd painted his apartment before. How hard could it be? He thought he could knock it out in 4 days. But a whole house with prep work, taping, priming, 2 coats and trim. It took him 2.5 weeks, working every evening and weekend. A professional crew would have done it in 3 days. That's a difference of 12 days. Almost $1,000 more in holding costs. Evaporated, all to save $1,500 on a painter. Do you see what's happening? It's death by 1,000 cuts. Each delay, each little setback seems insignificant on its own. Few days here, a week there. But the meter doesn't care. The bank doesn't care if your contractor is sick. The tax assessor doesn't care if your tile is on backorder. They get their money every single month like clockwork. The clock is your enemy. Mark's 3-month, 90-day flip stretched into 4 months. Then 5. A permit issue delayed the final inspection. That was another 3 weeks. By the time the house was finally finished, staged, and listed, 7 months had passed since the day he closed. 7 months. Let's do the math. $2,500 a month in holding costs, times 7 months. That's $17,500. His original budget for holding costs was $7,500. That's a $10,000 budget overrun on holding costs alone. His projected $60,000 profit was now, at best, $50,000. And that's before accounting for the extra cost of the new plumbing, the dumpster rental that sat there for an extra 4 months, and all the other little things that snowballed. By the time he sold the house, after paying realtor commissions and closing costs, Mark's grand slam $60,000 profit had shriveled to just under $20,000. He worked tirelessly for 7 months, stressed out of his mind, for less than $3,000 a month. He would have made more money delivering pizzas. Mark's story isn't unique. It is the default experience for first-timers who don't treat time with the same respect they treat money. The pros, the people who do this for a living, are obsessed with the timeline. They know that speed is profit. They understand that a project schedule is not a suggestion. It is the financial blueprint of the entire deal. So how do you avoid this? First, you internalize this mantra. Every single day costs me money. Say it out loud. Every single day costs me money. That sunrise isn't beautiful. It's a bill. Second, you create a hyper-detailed schedule before you even close on the property. I don't mean a vague month 1 we do plumbing. I mean a day-by-day, week-by-week battle plan. Week 1 Monday through Tuesday is demo. Wednesday is dumpster swap out. Thursday through Friday is framing repair. You schedule your contractors like a military operation. You need to know not just what is happening each week, but who is responsible, and what the dependency is for the next trade to start. Third, and this is the most critical part, you add a buffer. A massive buffer. If your most realistic detailed schedule says the project will take 12 weeks, you need to budget for 16, maybe even 20 weeks of holding costs. You plan for the worst and you pray for the best. If you run the numbers and you can't survive the holding costs on a 20-week timeline, then you walk away from the deal. The deal is too thin. It's a trap. A longer timeline doesn't just protect you from delays. It gives you breathing room and prevents you from making panicked, stupid decisions because you feel the financial noose tightening around your neck. And finally, you become the world's most annoying, persistent, yet polite project manager. You don't assume your electrician will show up on Monday, just because he said he would 2 weeks ago. You call him on Friday to confirm. You text him Sunday night to confirm again. You are on that job site every single day, checking progress, solving problems, and making sure there is no dead time. An empty job site is a fire hose spraying your profits directly down the drain. You have to order your materials weeks in advance. Cabinets, windows, special order tile, these things have lead times. You can't have a crew of framers standing around getting paid while they wait for a lumber delivery you forgot to schedule. The difference between a successful flip and a financial nightmare often comes down to this one simple thing. The amateur focuses only on the renovation budget. The professional is obsessed with the calendar. They know that managing the flow of time is just as important, if not more important, than managing the flow of money. So you've mastered your numbers, you've got your pro team, and you've built a bulletproof timeline. Your project is running like a well-oiled machine. You're heading towards a massive payday. Or so you think, because there's a creative mistake, a design trap, that can make all that hard work and financial discipline completely irrelevant. It happens in the most exciting phase, the design phase, when you start picking out finishes, colors, and fixtures. And it's the mistake that can make your beautiful, perfectly renovated house completely unsellable. And that mistake has a name. It's called designing for yourself. This is, without a doubt, the most seductive, the most ego-driven, and the most financially ruinous trap a first-time flipper can fall into. It's the moment you stop being a real estate investor and start acting like you're the star of your own home design show. And trust me, the only thing that gets canceled faster than a bad TV show is a flip that's designed with the wrong audience in mind. Let me tell you about a guy named Mark. Mark was smart, driven, and had saved up a decent chunk of cash for his first flip. He did his homework, he ran the numbers on the purchase, he even budgeted for the renovation. He found the perfect house. A tired, dated but structurally sound 1980s colonial in a great school district. It was a guaranteed home run, on paper. But Mark had a secret weapon. Or so he thought. He had taste. He wasn't like other flippers who just slapped gray paint on everything. He had a vision. He wanted to create something memorable, something with a wow factor. He wanted the house to be an extension of his own personality. Bold, unique, sophisticated. The demolition and framing went smoothly. The plumbing and electrical were updated without a hitch. He was on schedule and on budget. Then came the fun part, the design phase. Mark walked into the tile store, and his eyes lit up. He bypassed the safe, neutral subway tiles and beelined for a shimmering, iridescent mosaic tile in deep blues and greens. "It'll be like a mermaid's grotto in the master bath," he told his contractor, who just kind of grunted. The tile was 4 times the price of standard tile, and had to be special ordered from Italy. But Mark justified it. "It's a statement piece," he said. "People will remember it." Next was the kitchen. He'd seen a stunning kitchen in a high-end design magazine. It was all black. Matte black cabinets, black granite countertops, black backsplash. It was dramatic, moody, and incredibly chic. His friends who came by the job site were blown away. "Dude, this is incredible," they'd say. "I've never seen a kitchen like this." This was music to Mark's ears. He was an artist, a visionary. He ignored the fact that the kitchen was north-facing and didn't get much natural light. He ignored the fact that black surfaces show every single fingerprint and speck of dust. He was creating a masterpiece. The custom matte black cabinets cost him a 30% premium over standard white shakers. The designer light fixtures he chose to complement the look put him another $3,000 over budget. For the front door, he chose a vibrant electric orange. "Curb appeal," he declared. For the floors, he picked a dark, almost black ebony stain, which looked amazing but made the entire house feel smaller and darker. Every single choice was a reflection of his unique, personal style. He was proud. He was building the house he would want to live in, and he assumed everyone else would want to live in it too. The project finished 2 months late and $25,000 over budget, thanks to all his custom special order materials. But when he stood in the finished house, he felt it was all worth it. It was a showstopper. It looked like nothing else on the market. He listed it at the top of the price range, confident a bidding war would start immediately. And then nothing. The first open house was packed. People walked in, their eyes went wide. They'd whisper to each other. He heard the word wow a lot. But it wasn't the wow he was expecting. It was the wow that's a choice kind of wow. No offers came in. Not one. His realtor started forwarding him the feedback from other agents. It was brutal. "My clients felt the kitchen was way too dark and depressing. The bathroom tile was a bit much for them. They're a young couple, not mermaids. The dark floors make the whole place feel like a cave. It's a beautiful house, but it's just too specific. My buyers couldn't see their own furniture in there. Mark was in denial. They just don't get it, he fumed. They have no taste. But as the second week turned into the third, and the third into a month, a cold, hard panic began to set in. Every single day, he was paying the mortgage on the house. He was paying the insurance. He was paying the utilities. He was paying the property taxes. This is what we call holding costs, and they were a parasite, eating away at his potential profit with every sunrise. That $25,000 he went over budget was just the beginning of his losses. The real damage was happening now. Every single day the house sat empty. Finally, after 60 agonizing days on the market, he got a lowball offer. It was insulting. He refused. 2 more weeks went by. The financial pressure was suffocating. He had to drop the price. Then he had to drop it again. He finally sold the house 94 days after listing it, for $20,000 less than what he had originally paid for it, not even counting the renovation costs. After paying commissions and closing costs, Mark walked away with a catastrophic loss of over $80,000. His dream of becoming a real estate investor was shattered. Mark's story is a tragedy, and it's one that plays out every single day. He made the cardinal sin of flipping. He fell in love with his own project and designed it for an audience of one, himself. The goal of flipping a house is not to get it featured on the cover of Architectural Digest. The goal is to appeal to the widest possible pool of qualified buyers in your specific market, so you can sell the property as quickly as possible, for the highest possible price. That's it. You have to remove your ego from the equation. Your personal taste is completely and utterly irrelevant. I don't care if you love rustic farmhouse or mid-century modern or bohemian chic. The only thing that matters is what the 34-year-old couple with 2 kids and a golden retriever, who are looking to buy a 4-bedroom house in that specific school district want. So how do you avoid this? You become a data-driven detective. You stop looking at design magazines and you start looking at the MLS. Find the 5 most recent comparable homes that sold in your target neighborhood. But don't just look at the sale price. Study the photos like you're studying for the final exam. What color are the kitchen cabinets? I'll bet you $1,000 they are white, or maybe a light gray or a natural wood tone. What kind of countertops are they? Probably a light-colored quartz or granite with subtle veining. What color is the paint on the walls? It's almost certainly a neutral, off-white, or a light grayish, like Benjamin Moore's Revere Pewter or Sherwin-Williams Agreeable Gray. What kind of flooring is it? It's likely a light to medium-toned luxury vinyl plank or a classic hardwood. You will see a pattern emerge. This isn't a coincidence. This is the market telling you exactly what it wants. Your job is not to be an artist. It's to be a manufacturer. You are manufacturing a product, a clean, updated, move-in ready house, for a target demographic. Your mission is to create a beautiful, warm, inviting blank canvas. A potential buyer needs to be able to walk in and mentally place their own couch, their own artwork, their own life into that space. When you make hyper-specific design choices like a black kitchen or a mermaid bathroom, you are not creating a blank canvas. You are painting a finished portrait and asking someone to buy it. The problem is, almost no one wants a portrait of a stranger hanging in their living room. Your guiding principle should be mass appeal. Think less like a boutique hotel and more like a Pottery Barn catalog. It's clean, it's classic, it's aspirational but accessible. It's inoffensive. And that's not a bad word in the world of flipping. Inoffensive sells. Controversial sits. Before you buy a single can of paint, you need to build a design profile for your ideal buyer. Talk to the top real estate agents who work in that neighborhood. Ask them point blank, what are buyers in the $500,000 price range looking for right now? What are the must-haves? What finishes get the best reaction? What trends are dead? They are on the front lines every single weekend, and their intelligence is priceless. Follow this simple mantra for your finishes. Light, bright, and timeless. Light walls, light countertops, light and bright kitchens. It makes spaces feel bigger, cleaner, and more valuable. And choose timeless materials. A classic white subway tile in the bathroom will still look good in 10 years. That trendy, patterned cement tile you love might look dated in 2. Your goal is to create a home that feels fresh and new, but not so trendy that it has the shelf life of a carton of milk. Mark's story is a painful one, but it highlights a fundamental truth. In flipping, taste is subjective but math is absolute. And while his design choices were the initial cause of his failure, they triggered a catastrophic financial cascade. He didn't just lose money on the expensive tile and the price reduction. He was bled dry by 1,000 tiny cuts every single day he owned that property. This brings us to the fourth and perhaps most insidious mistake a flipper can make. A mistake that has nothing to do with hammers or paint, but everything to do with a calendar and a calculator. Underestimating your holding costs. This is the silent killer of house flips. It's not the dramatic $30,000 foundation crack that catches you on camera for a reality TV show. No, this is the slow, quiet bleed. It's the drip, drip, drip of money leaving your account every single day, turning your dream profit into a nightmare loss. Most first-time flippers are obsessed with the renovation budget. They get 10 quotes for cabinets, they spend weeks hunting for the perfect tile on sale, they negotiate hard with their plumber. They have spreadsheets with every screw and every can of paint accounted for. And that's great. You should do that. But they calculate their mortgage, taxes, and insurance for their projected timeline, let's say 3 months, and they put that number in a little box at the bottom of the spreadsheet, and then they forget about it. They see the big, sexy numbers, the $70,000 renovation budget. They don't see the insidious $3,000 a month monster lurking in the shadows. Let me tell you about a couple, we'll call them David and Maria. They found what they thought was the perfect first flip. A small 3-bedroom ranch in a decent up-and-coming neighborhood. The purchase price was great, and their inspection showed it needed mostly cosmetic work, plus a new kitchen and bathroom. They were meticulous. They created a binder 3 inches thick with design plans, contractor bids, and a detailed budget. Their all-in number for the renovation was $65,000. They projected a 3-month turnaround, from closing day to sale day. Their holding costs, the mortgage, taxes, insurance, and basic utilities, came to about $2,800 a month. So for 3 months, that's $8,400. They budgeted for it. They felt prepared, professional even. They closed on the house on a Tuesday in April, full of optimism and ready to work. Their first task was to move a non-load-bearing wall between the kitchen and the living room to create that open concept feel everyone wants. Simple, right? They submitted the plans to the city for the permit. The clerk told them it would be a couple of weeks. 6 weeks later, they were still waiting. 6 weeks of phone calls, emails, and trips down to the city planning office, only to be met with shrugs. 6 weeks where their contractor couldn't start, where the house sat empty, silent, and costing them $2,800. Their 3-month timeline was already halfway gone before they'd even swung a hammer. Finally, the permit came through. The demo crew went in and took down the wall in a single day. Felt like a huge victory. But now their plumber, who they had scheduled 2 months ago, was on another job. He couldn't get to them for another 3 weeks. Another delay. Another $2,800 dripped away. When the plumber was finally done, the electrician came in. He opened a wall to run new wiring for the kitchen island and found old, knob and tube wiring. It wasn't on the inspection report. It was a fire hazard and had to be completely replaced to meet code. That was an unexpected $10,000 cost, and more importantly, another 2-week delay while the electrician rewired half the house. By now, David and Maria were deep into month 4. Their stress was through the roof. They were working on the house every night after their day jobs, painting, laying flooring, trying to claw back time. But the delays kept coming. The custom vanities they ordered for the bathroom arrived in the wrong color. The supplier apologized, but the replacement would take 4 weeks. 4 more weeks. Another $2,800. A freak summer hailstorm damaged some of the roof shingles, which their insurance covered, but the claims process and the roofer's schedule added another 3 weeks. Their initial 3-month project stretched to 4, then 5, then 7 months. Let's do the math. They budgeted for 3 months of holding costs, $8,400. But they paid for 7 months. That's $19,600. A difference of over $11,000. This was $11,000 that wasn't in the budget. It wasn't for a beautiful new appliance or stunning light fixtures. It was just gone. It evaporated into thin air, paying for a house to simply exist. When they finally listed the house a full 8 months after they bought it, the market had shifted. The summer buying frenzy was over. Interest rates had ticked up 1/4 of a point, making buyers a little more hesitant. Their house, which they expected to sell in a weekend, sat on the market for 52 days. That's almost 2 more months of holding costs. Another $5,000 gone. When all was said and done, their projected $45,000 profit had dwindled to just under $9,000. For 8 months of grueling work, financial anxiety, and strained relationships, they each made less than a part-time barista. They were crushed, not by a catastrophe, but by the steady, relentless ticking of the clock. Time is your single greatest enemy in a house flip. Every sunrise costs you money. You are in a race against the calendar from the moment you sign the closing documents. So how do you beat the clock? First, you have to respect it. You have to treat your timeline with the same seriousness as your renovation budget. Here's the rule of thumb used by seasoned pros. Take your most realistic timeline estimate and add 50%. If you think your project will take 4 months, you create a budget and a mental framework for 6 months. If a miracle happens and you finish in 4, you're a hero. But if you hit the inevitable delays, and you will hit delays, you're prepared for them. The stress won't crush you, and the costs won't bankrupt you. Second, you need to become a master of scheduling. Don't just have a to-do list, have a detailed project plan. A Gantt chart is a great tool for this. It maps out every task and, crucially, its dependencies. You can't install flooring until the drywall is finished and painted. You can't paint until the electrical and plumbing rough-ins are done. When you map this out visually, you see how a 1-week delay with the plumber can push your entire project back by a month as it cascades through every subsequent trade. Third, have your team ready to go before you even own the house. During your inspection period, you should be walking your general contractor, your plumber, your electrician through the property. Get firm bids and, more importantly, get a commitment for their availability. Ask them, if I close on this date, when is the absolute earliest you can start? Have a plan B for every single contractor. Because the guy who promises you he can start Monday might call you Sunday night to say his other job is running long and he can't make it for 2 weeks. If you don't have a backup, you've just lost 2 weeks. And finally, budget your holding costs as a primary, significant expense category, not an afterthought. Calculate it based on your 50% buffer timeline. If your optimistic timeline is 4 months, you budget for 6 months of holding costs, right at the top of your spreadsheet. Look at that number. Stare at it. Let it sink in. That is the cost of time. It's the fire under your feet that should motivate every decision you make. Because David and Maria did almost everything right. They found a good deal, they designed a beautiful house, they managed their renovation costs. But they didn't manage their calendar. They were bled dry by 1,000 tiny paper cuts. And they learned the hardest lesson in flipping. Profit isn't just made with a hammer, it's preserved with a stopwatch. They finally sold the house, but the process revealed one last critical mistake. It was a mistake made in the final 10% of the project that cost them 30% of their remaining profit. It's the mistake that separates the amateurs who get lucky once from the pros who build a real business. And it has everything to do with the moment you finally put that for sale sign in the yard. Which brings us to the 5th and final mistake. Failing to sell it like a pro. This is the one. This is the mistake that turns a profitable project into a break-even nightmare. It's the final mile of the marathon where amateur flippers, exhausted from the renovation, collapse right before the finish line. You see, they spend months obsessing over every detail, the cost of lumber, the perfect shade of grayish paint, the right kitchen hardware. They become experts in construction, budgeting, and project management. But then, when it's time to actually get paid, they completely forget to become experts in the most important skill of all, marketing. Let's imagine a first-time flipper. We'll call him Dan. Dan did almost everything right. He found a decent deal on a tired-looking ranch house. He set a realistic budget and, for the most part, stuck to it. He hired a decent contractor and managed the project well. After 3 grueling months, the house is transformed. The floors are gleaming, the kitchen is brand new, the bathroom looks like a spa. Dan is proud. He's also emotionally invested. He sees every drop of sweat, every late night, every difficult decision reflected in those walls. And that's where the trouble begins. His real estate agent runs the comps, the recent sales of similar houses in the neighborhood, and suggests a listing price of $450,000. A price that would give Dan a very healthy $40,000 profit. But Dan scoffs. 40-50? No way. He looks at the custom backsplash he spent a whole weekend installing. He remembers the premium LVP flooring he chose. He thinks about the brand new HVAC unit. This house is special, he tells the agent. It's way nicer than that cookie-cutter flip that sold down the street. We need to list at $499,000. This is the first part of failing to sell like a pro, the emotional pricing trap. Dan isn't pricing the house based on what the market will bear. He's pricing it based on his own effort, his own costs, and his own emotional attachment. He's trying to get paid for his struggle, but the market doesn't care about your struggle. The market only cares about value relative to other available options. A buyer doesn't see the 16 hours you spent tiling. They just see a tile backsplash. And if the house down the street has a similar backsplash and costs $50,000 less, guess which one they're going to buy? Despite his agent's warnings, Dan insists. The house goes on the market for $499K. And then comes the second part of the failure, the presentation flop. To save money after the expensive renovation, Dan decides against professional staging. The house is brand new. It speaks for itself, he reasons. He also decides to save a few $100 by taking the photos himself on his new iPhone. The listing goes live, and it's a dud. The empty living room, which feels spacious in person, looks like a sterile, long bowling alley in his wide-angle phone pictures. The beautiful gray walls he agonized over look dark and gloomy because of the poor lighting. Without furniture, buyers have no sense of scale. They can't tell if their king-size bed will fit in the master bedroom, or where the couch should go in the family room. You're not just selling rooms and walls, you're selling a vision of a life. And an empty house doesn't sell a vision, sells a box. A professional stager and a professional photographer aren't costs. They are investments in crafting that vision, and it's the single highest ROI you can get at the end of a project. So now Dan has an overpriced, poorly presented house on the market. The first weekend comes and goes with only a trickle of interest. A few lowball offers come in, which Dan rejects with indignation. They're trying to steal it, he fumes. He doesn't realize the market is sending him a clear message. You are priced too high. And all the while, a silent killer is eating away at his profit margin. This is the third and most devastating part of the mistake, forgetting the ticking clock of holding costs. Every single day that house sits on the market, Dan is bleeding money. He's paying the interest on his hard money loan, hundreds of dollars a week. He's paying for insurance. He's paying for utilities, gotta keep the lights on and the AC running for showings. He's paying property taxes. Let's say his total holding costs are $3,000 a month. After one full month on the market with no serious offers, his potential $40,000 profit is already down to $37,000. He finally agrees to a price drop, down to $475K. Still too high. Another month goes by. Another $3,000 in holding costs vanish. His profit is now down to $34,000. The house is becoming stale. Agents and buyers start to wonder, what's wrong with that place? It's been on the market for 60 days. The perception of value begins to plummet. This is the death spiral. The longer it sits, the less desirable it becomes, forcing you into bigger and bigger price drops, all while your holding costs pile up like a snowstorm. Now let's contrast this with how a pro handles it. A pro is a stone-cold realist. They look at the comps and listen to their agent. They understand that the market is the only thing that matters. A pro might even price the house aggressively, maybe at $449K, just under the comps, to create a frenzy of interest in the first weekend. They know that an auction-like atmosphere with multiple buyers can often drive the final price above asking, to $460K or $465K. They would rather sell in 3 days for a $45K profit than in 3 months for a $30K profit. Speed is everything. A pro would never list a house without professional staging and photography. They know that the $1,000 or $2,000 they spend on making the house look like a model home will come back to them tenfold in the final sales price and a drastically shorter time on market. They know the first showing doesn't happen when someone walks through the front door. It happens when they are scrolling through Zillow on their phone. If your photos don't grab them in 3 seconds, you've already lost. After 75 days on the market, Dan finally capitulates. His agent tells him the brutal truth. His holding costs have now eaten over $7,000 of his profit. He's lost the new listing buzz. His only move is a drastic price cut. He drops it to $445K, below the original recommendation. He pays to have it staged. A week later, he gets an offer for $440K. He's so beaten down and desperate to stop the bleeding that he accepts immediately. Let's do the math. His original profit potential was $40,000. He lost over $7,000 in holding costs. He had to drop the price $10,000 below his agent's initial, data-backed suggestion. His final profit isn't $40,000. It's a measly $23,000. He lost nearly half his potential profit, all because of ego, emotion, and trying to save a couple of $1,000s at the very end. He failed to sell it like a pro. This final step is not an afterthought. It is the entire point of the project. You must transition your brain from that of a construction manager to that of a master marketer. Price it based on data, not feelings. Present it as a dream home, not an empty shell. And understand that every single day is a drain on your bottom line. Don't let a 90-day mistake erase 90 days of hard work. Master the sale and you master the flip. And that brings us to the fifth and final mistake. The one that, in many ways, is the parent of all the others. It's the mistake that ensures you'll make the first four time and time again. It's the foundational error that separates the person who does one stressful, break-even flip from the person who builds an empire. The fifth mistake is treating house flipping like a hobby instead of a business. This sounds simple, but it is the most profound mindset shift you have to make. A hobby is something you do for fun. You pour money into it because you enjoy the process. You don't track your hours. You make decisions based on what you like, what feels good, what you saw in a magazine. If you lose a little money on a hobby, it's okay because you got enjoyment out of it. That mindset will bankrupt you in real estate. A business, on the other hand, is a machine. It's a system designed for one primary purpose: to generate profit. It runs on data, not on passion. It operates on spreadsheets, not on whims. It is ruthless in its efficiency. Every single dollar has a job. Every single day has a cost. Every decision is weighed against its potential return on investment. When you treat flipping as a hobby, you fall in love with the house. You say things like, "Oh, but I've always wanted a kitchen with a marble waterfall island." But the data for the neighborhood says a clean level 3 granite countertop is the market expectation, and that marble island will cost you an extra $8,000 you will never get back. The hobbyist installs the marble. The business owner installs the granite, takes the $8,000 in profit, and moves on to the next deal. When you treat it as a hobby, you don't build systems. You find a contractor on a recommendation from a friend and just hope for the best. A business owner builds a bulletproof system for vetting contractors. They have a standardized scope of work document. They have a payment schedule tied to milestones. They have a penalty clause for delays. They have a repeatable process that works on every single project, minimizing risk and maximizing predictability. The hobbyist gets a great deal on a property and thinks, "Fantastic." The business owner gets a great deal and immediately calls their accountant to discuss the tax implications, talks to their lawyer about titling the property in an LLC to protect their personal assets, and calls their insurance agent to ensure they have the right kind of coverage for a vacant construction site. This is the unglamorous part nobody shows you on TV. It's not about swinging a sledgehammer and picking out paint colors. It's about creating a legal, financial, and operational fortress around your investment. Hobbyists build a house. Professionals build a business that happens to flip houses. Let me paint you a picture of how this plays out. Let's imagine two first-time flippers, both buying similar houses in the same neighborhood. We'll call the first one hobbyist Harry. Harry buys the house for a little over market value because he got into a bidding war and just had to have it. That's mistake number one. He hires his cousin's friend to do the renovation because he's cheap and available. He doesn't sign a detailed contract. That's the seed of mistake number two. Mid-project, Harry decides the house needs imported Italian tile in the master bathroom and a professional grade 6-burner stove in the kitchen, because that's what he'd want in his own home. He blows his budget. That's mistake number three. The contractor gets flaky, the special order tile is delayed, and the project timeline doubles. Harry isn't on site managing it because he's busy with his day job. That's mistake number four. Finally, after 6 agonizing months, the house is done. It's beautiful, a monument to Harry's personal taste. But he's so far over budget and has racked up so many holding costs that he has to list it for 20% above any comparable sale in the area. It sits on the market for months. He eventually sells it for a $5,000 loss, not even counting the hundreds of hours of his own unpaid time and stress. He tells everyone, "Yeah, flipping is just not worth it." Now let's look at professional Paige. Paige spent 2 months analyzing the market before ever making an offer. She knows exactly what a renovated house sells for down to the square foot. She buys a distressed property for 25% below market value because her offer was based on data, not emotion. Mistake number one avoided. Before closing, she interviewed 5 different contractors, checked all their references, and visited their current job sites. She has a 30-page contract that details every single fixture, paint color, and deadline. Mistake number two avoided. Her renovation plan is based entirely on what sells best in that specific neighborhood for first-time homebuyers. It's clean, modern, and neutral. It's not her dream house. It's a product designed for a target customer. She sticks to the budget religiously. Mistake number 3 avoided. She manages the project with a cloud-based spreadsheet shared with her contractor. She visits the site every other day for a 15-minute walkthrough. The project finishes on time and on budget. Mistake number 4 avoided. She lists the house with a top agent, priced correctly, and it goes under contract in 6 days for full asking price. She walks away with a $60,000 profit in 95 days. She immediately reinvests that profit using the same systems into 2 more houses. Harry had a hobby. Paige has a business. Harry has a story about a stressful failure. Paige has a scalable wealth generation machine. That is the difference. Every mistake we've talked about today, paying too much, hiring the wrong people, over-improving, and mismanaging the project, they all stem from that one core error. Forgetting that you are not an artist or a home decorator. You are an investor. You are a manufacturer. You are buying a raw material, a distressed property, and you are manufacturing a finished product, a market-ready home, for a predictable profit. So as we wrap this up, I want you to ask yourself, why are you really looking to get into this? If you want to design a beautiful home, there are cheaper ways to do it. If you want a weekend hobby, take up woodworking. But if you want to build financial freedom, if you want to create a business that can change your life and your family's future, then you have to make the choice right now to be professional Paige, not hobbyist Harry. This isn't to scare you. It's to empower you. These 5 mistakes are not roadblocks. They are signposts. They are the exact map of what not to do. By understanding them, you are already ahead of 90% of the people who try and fail at this business. You have the blueprint for success simply by inverting the formula for failure. Analyze your deals like a scientist. Build your team like a CEO. Manage your budget like an accountant. Control your timeline like a general. And run the entire operation like the powerful, profitable business it can be. This is your opportunity. The market will always have houses that need work. There will always be buyers who want a move-in-ready home. The space in between those 2 things is where you build your future. Don't let these common, avoidable mistakes be the reason you never get there. Your journey isn't over after watching this video. It's just beginning. The first step isn't buying a house. It's building your education. It's committing to the mindset of a professional. Now I want to hear from you. In the comments below, tell me which of these 5 mistakes you are most concerned about making. Is it the fear of overpaying? The anxiety of finding a good contractor? Or something else entirely? Sharing it is the first step to conquering it, and the experiences you share will help everyone else reading too. Let's build a community of smart investors right here. And if you found this breakdown valuable, and you're ready to move from knowing the mistakes to mastering the solutions, make sure you subscribe. Because in our upcoming videos we're going to dive deeper, breaking down the exact systems you need to build your own flipping machine. You're not going to want to miss it. Thank you for your time and your attention. Now go out there and build your business.